There is a moment almost everyone recognizes. You understand something important about yourself. It might be a pattern you keep repeating, an emotional reaction that always shows up, a habit you never seem to break. For a brief moment, clarity arrives. You feel lighter, more spacious, more grounded. And then, quietly, the old experience returns. The thought comes back. The reaction returns. The tension rebuilds. Most people interpret this as failure. They assume the insight wasn't deep enough, or that they didn't hold it long enough, or that something is wrong with them. But neuroscience and systems science suggest something very different. The shift was real. It simply wasn't stabilized. And the reason has very little to do with motivation, belief, or discipline. It has everything to do with observation. Most people think of observation as passive, something you do after experience has already happened. But biologically, observation is not passive at all. Observation is interaction, and interaction changes systems. This idea sits at the heart of what is often called the observer effect, not in a mystical sense, not in a symbolic sense, but in a mechanical one. In physics, the observer effect does not mean that human consciousness magically creates reality. Physicists such as Carlo Rovelli, David Bohm, and Nick Herbert are very clear about this. What observation does is introduce interaction. Measurement is not neutral. To measure a system is to disturb it, and disturbance constrains possibility. Before interaction, a system exists as a range of potential outcomes. Interaction forces a particular pattern to stabilize. When we bring this idea into psychology, we must be careful. Observation does not create emotions. Observation does not invent thoughts. Observation does not manifest outcomes. But observation does change how internal systems behave. Because internal systems, neural networks, emotional loops, habits, are sensitive to interaction. And observation is a form of interaction. To understand why, we need to look at how the brain works. Modern neuroscience no longer describes the brain as a passive receiver of reality. It describes it as a prediction machine. Researchers such as Carl Friston, Anil Seth, and Antonio Damasio have shown that perception is not something that happens to you. Perception is something your brain constructs. Your brain is constantly generating predictions about what is happening, what is about to happen, and what should happen next. What you experience as reality is the brain's best guess, updated moment by moment. This applies not only to perception, but to emotion as well. Lisa Feldman Barrett's research shows that emotions are not automatic reactions. They are predictions shaped by past experience, bodily signals, and context. This means that fear, sadness, confidence, and calm are not fixed responses. They are constructions. But here's the crucial detail. Not all predictions are treated equally. Some are held loosely. Others are held rigidly. The difference is determined by precision. Precision is the brain's estimate of how reliable a signal is. And what assigns precision? Attention. Attention is not effort. Attention is weighting. It tells the brain which signals matter more, which ones should dominate perception, which ones should guide behavior. Whatever you attend to becomes more precise. Whatever becomes more precise becomes more stable. This explains something many people struggle to understand. Why does anxiety persist even when you know your fear is irrational? Because the system is not responding to logic. It is responding to attention. An anxious system attends to threat. It scans. It monitors. It rehearses. Each act of attention increases precision. Each increase in precision stabilizes the prediction. This is why reassurance rarely works. Reassurance is information. Attention is reinforcement. The nervous system always prioritizes reinforcement. Now consider what happens when people try to change. They learn something new. They feel a moment of relief. And then they begin watching themselves. Am I calmer now? Is it working? Did I lose it? Why am I thinking this again? This feels responsible. It feels like self-awareness. But biologically, it functions as monitoring. And monitoring is attention with pressure. Pressure changes the signal. Pressure tells the nervous system that something is at stake, that vigilance is required. Vigilance is a threat state. Threat states tighten prediction. Tight prediction recreates the old experience. This is why insight collapses. Not because insight was false, but because the system was immediately placed back into vigilance. This is the first psychological expression of the observer effect. The moment experience is monitored with urgency, the system changes. Not for the better, for the more familiar. At this point, many people misunderstand what is being suggested. They think the solution is to stop noticing, to suppress awareness, to distract themselves. But avoidance does not loosen prediction. Avoidance often strengthens it. The issue is not noticing. The issue is how noticing happens. Observation can occur in different modes. Some modes tighten systems, others loosen them. But before we talk about loosening, we need to understand tightening fully, because this is where most self-help advice accidentally does harm. Many approaches encourage people to watch their thoughts, but they rarely explain how. So people watch with judgment, with urgency, with correction, with the silent belief that something is wrong. This turns observation into surveillance. Surveillance is not neutral. Surveillance implies threat. This is why some people say self-awareness increased their anxiety. It wasn't awareness. It was hyperattention. Attention driven by fear of getting it wrong. The nervous system cannot distinguish between external danger and internal pressure. Pressure is pressure, and pressure always stabilizes the old model. This brings us to a critical distinction. Observation is not evaluation. Evaluation introduces judgment. Judgment introduces threat. Threat locks prediction. True observation, in the scientific sense, does not attempt to change the system. It simply allows the system to be registered. And registration alone alters dynamics. Think about a simple bodily example. You are clenching your jaw. You don't know it. Someone points it out. The moment you notice, the jaw releases. No effort. No instruction. Just observation. That release did not happen because you tried. It happened because the system was no longer operating unconsciously. The pattern became visible. Visibility introduced flexibility. This is the observer effect in lived experience. Not dramatic, not mystical, but precise. However, this effect is fragile, because most people immediately interfere. They think they must keep it, hold it, maintain it. The moment that thought appears, pressure returns, and the system tightens again. This is why early change feels unstable, not because it is fake, but because it is constantly being interrupted. Systems science helps explain why this happens. Researchers such as Ilya Prigogine and Stuart Kaufman showed that complex systems reorganize only when constraints are loosened. Too much constraint produces rigidity. Too little constraint produces chaos. Stability emerges in a narrow zone between the two. Observation without pressure reduces constraint. Observation with pressure increases it. This difference determines whether a system reorganizes or locks. In physics, gentle measurement reveals different properties than aggressive measurement. In neuroscience, non-judgmental observation produces different neural patterns than evaluative monitoring. In life, some insights change you, and others vanish. This is why the observer effect is so often misunderstood. It is not that observation creates reality. It is that observation changes the conditions under which reality is stabilized. Update requires uncertainty, and uncertainty feels uncomfortable, because uncertainty means loss of control. This is why people rush to fix, to explain, to label. These actions reduce uncertainty, but they also freeze the system. Observation without interference allows uncertainty to remain long enough for updating to occur. But that requires tolerating not knowing, and that is not easy. This is why people oscillate between insight and collapse. Insight opens uncertainty. Monitoring closes it. So the observer effect, in its first and most misunderstood form, can be stated simply: noticing changes experience. Monitoring stabilizes it. This episode stops here intentionally, because the next question is unavoidable. If attention can tighten systems, if monitoring can collapse change, then what kind of observation allows change to stabilize? That question leads to awareness. Not awareness as effort. Awareness as non-interference. And that is the subject of the next episode. Many of the ideas in this episode, prediction, attention, interference, and stability, are explored more slowly and reflectively in my book, Quantum Reset: Changing the State That Shapes Your Life. The book is not about forcing change or controlling outcomes. It is about understanding how internal states stabilize and how pressure quietly keeps us stuck. If you prefer reading and revisiting ideas at your own pace, you'll find the link in the description. For now, there is nothing to practice, nothing to fix, nothing to hold, only something to recognize. You are not failing at change. You are interacting with the system in a way that keeps it familiar. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. If this episode helped you understand something you felt but never had language for, subscribing supports this kind of long-form research-based work. In the next episode, we'll explore what happens when observation stops interfering, and why that is where real change begins.